Hey, out of order, James Kalita here, talking today about the so-called epidemic of gun violence. We have in the media all the time this refrain that in the United States we have an epidemic of gun violence and we have 30,000 gun deaths a year. And I talk in another video about how that number is inaccurate and completely fabricated. But I also want to talk here about how it's a misdirection. When we talk about gun violence, there's always the focus on gun control, as though the method for solving this problem is to take away firearms. Now, I've said over and over again that gun control isn't going to keep guns out of the hands of people willing to commit murder, but only keep guns out of the hands of people who are buying them to defend their life, liberty, and property. But when you do that, you make more people easy targets for people who are willing to break the law and commit murder, and break the law and illegally acquire a firearm. Now, this is assuming that you manage to limit the supply of firearms at all, which evidence says that you won't, that these laws will be ineffective. But if you look at it from the other side, right, so we have this problem, and we're talking about gun violence, and maybe in another video I'll look into the question of why we're talking about gun violence and not violence in general. But here, if we're talking about gun violence, let's say you address the problem from the other side. Instead of addressing the supply of guns, you addressed the cause of violence. And if you put in place solutions to limit whatever those causes are, whatever you determine those causes to be, then it doesn't matter that the guns are left over. Because if you reduce violence, then it doesn't matter that the gun is there, right? Because people are less likely to be violent. Now, if you address it from the other way, if you just limit the supply of firearms, you still have the same propensity for violence. And you've accomplished nothing, right? In theory, you've taken guns away from the people who are willing to commit murder, but you've left the same number of people willing and desiring to commit murder. And they still have very capable tools available to them. They can still make explosives, they can still make firearms, they can still make knives, they can still use cars, they can still do all sorts of horrible things because you haven't addressed the cause, or whatever that cause is that's leading people to violence. You've taken away, or attempted to take away, a tool and not addressed the underlying concern. Out of order, James Kalita. We'll see you next time.